Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming here this afternoon with us. We are going to begin on time this presentation, and thanks to those of you who are there with us. We know that there's an online connection, and the reason for bringing you here is to share with you and to present the mechanisms for minority co-production that exist in Spain at the general state level and on an autonomous level, specifically with ICEC. Our guests this afternoon are Añora, who represents ELICA, Miquel Curata, in representation of ICEC, Aramea Mones, producer of Fasten, and Ángeles, producer of Mr. Miyagi. What we have thought is to first of all present the general lines, and then we shall move on to very specific cases of projects that have been done in international co-production terms. So we shall begin with Sylvia. Could you present the mechanisms of the general lines and some data regarding what have been done regarding certain calls for aid so far? Okay, good afternoon. From the ICA, we haven't got any specific line for co-production, for minority co-productions. Can you hear me? Shall I remove this? No, can you hear me? Yes. Right, while I speak, okay? Mm-hmm. We haven't got a very specific line, but we have been 2 years in terms of selective lines. It's a minimum of 5% of in 2020 and 2021. It seemed important to us to support minority co-productions because we received lots of requests for co-production, majority co-production, and from Spain. The minority co-productions, we think that we have to give them specific aid so that they can be done, and they co-production in minority with several countries. When there are several countries, we think that they give a greater possibility to the Spanish professional, greater professional level, because you are not the one who control of the product. You have to coordinate with other producers. You have to arrive at agreements, packs. You know how they get to work in other countries, first-hand experience. So it is good for production companies. It also opens you to different markets. It's not the same thing producing with one country as in different countries. The case we talked about now, that's very much in vogue now. The film Costa Brava, co-produced with 5 countries, you have 5 markets, but also those co-productions, minority co-productions, or with several countries, they opens you to different doors in terms of international festivals. As we always say, it's not the same knock on one door as one person, as opposed to 5 persons going to the director of a festival asking him to project our film. So I think it's a way of advancing with projects and getting them done. In these last 2 years, there have been projects in co-production, minority co-production, but we still believe that we have to give further impetus to this. In terms of the selective projects, in 2020, we had 11 million euros, 200 for minority co-productions, 84 million, there were 324 requests, and of those 324, 41 projects received aid, 23 of them in co-production, and 6 with minority co-productions. In terms of countries, my data with Europe, I can say minority co-productions, there were 3, and with Latin American countries, another 3 of those 6. But co-productions, majority co-productions, Europe, there were 14, and Latin America, there were 7. European and Latin American, one project, and United States one project. That was in 2020. In 2021, the total figure was 15 million. We received 319 requests. We have given aid to not yet, but probably 47 in principle. International co-productions, of those 47, there would be 27 projects. And of those 27 projects, 8 are minority co-productions. So this year, between minority, there are more variety. 1 with Europe, 5 with Latin America, 1 Europe and Latin America, and others, I think is Afghanistan, I seem to remember. I will confirm later. I think it's Afghanistan. And in co-production, there were 27, so that's a very high percentage. In terms of general aid, I talk about aid as though if you know them, but selective aid for feature films, more cultural auteur films, and general are more industrial-oriented films, we can say in general lines. They're bigger projects. In general projects, there's nothing prevents asking, there is no reservation, there's nothing prevents asking for help as a minority co-production, but the reality, the fact is that no one who asks for general aid comes as a minority co-production. 100% are all of them come as majority co-productions from Spain. So there is nothing that sort of takes away points from you in terms of general requests, except that is done in another language that's not one of the national languages, in which case you will lose 2 points. And regarding the other points, you have to have contracts, distribution, general sales, TV, women, etc. There are lots of criteria, but that doesn't come with co-productions. Why? Because everyone tries to get the maximum amount of financiation to get fiscal aid, etc., because they understand as a minority co-production that financial structure is more difficult. But our idea is that next year we're going to see if we can give a push to minority co-productions. We want to continue to support them, and in principle, that's it. That's the general outline. It is a mechanism from the sector we've been calling for years and years for improvement in this mechanism, because as producers we seek producer financing from outside, but not having a fund here which allows at the same time us to be minority, that didn't allow for that reciprocity. Also, there's a strategic point there which is important in terms of the artistic sector and culturally, beyond industry factors, and that is it promotes our cinema and our brand by multiplying our possibilities of access to new territories, new festivals. So it's true that we don't talk about. It's a whole process because when those who have encouraged these funds, this demand, we came from a part of the sector that was independent, more artistic, more independent, which is an important part of the sector of this initiative. And I would like to, Mikel, I would like you to give us the aids that have been given by ISEC. Thanks, Valerie. Hello to all. We set up last year a line of help to encourage co-production in minority co-productions. The total fund was 1,200,000 euros from last year. 10 projects came out of this. So we're not sure, but Afghanistan, Argentina, Sweden, Panama, Mexico, Lebanon, Italy, and France. This help, it covers feature, documentary, animation with international co-production, where the Spanish participation is minority participation. The maximum amount is 300,000 for feature films with a maximum of 60% of the envisaged spending by the company. And here we did also, we demand that the Catalan participation has to be creative, artistically, technically, and that when you request this help, we have 40% of the budget guaranteed, and that the international co-production should be officially approved by the competent authorities, the relevant authorities, at least in the year previous to the request being made, and that this feature film should be ended by the 15th of September of the third year after the granting of that aid, of that subsidy. And there are a few other characteristics, but I think they are less important. This call this year is still open. It closes in 2 days, on the 23rd. So we can't talk about the call for this year, but in the call for 2020, there were, in terms of countries, there were United States, Afghanistan, Argentina with 6 co-productions, Brazil, Costa Rica, and Denmark with 2, France with 4, Holland and Italy, Lebanon, Mexico with 2, Panama and Peru. And these were the projects that requested this aid. 16 projects, 10 of them were feature films, 2 were documentaries, and at the end, the resolution was for 10 projects to be subsidized, 6 feature films and 4 documentaries. I shall keep the rest of the information for later on in case people want to ask questions, so we can go more quickly now in this first stage. I should like to add that these funds are compatible among each other, because you can request one and another one as long as you respect the quantities and the proportions of investment envisaged. In fact, there's a case where of a project that has received both kinds of aid, as Silvia was saying, the case of Costa Brava, the film, which is a film that brings together 5 countries, they've also received the aid of ISEC and ICA from Spain, and it was released in Venice and is now being screened in Toronto. And I think it's a case of a real success case, because certainly this film could have been made, but it would not have Spanish nationality, and it wouldn't have the Catalan talent that comes with it. I'd also like to say that these forms of aid also serve for all kinds of genres, not format but genre, and that includes fiction, animation, documentary. I think, Angeles, if you could tell us, explain perhaps, since you are preparing the ISEC and you've also asked for help from IKE, tell us about animation, how you've managed, how you've done it. Good afternoon. What I would like to say at the beginning is that really the will of the ICA as well as ICAC by enlarging these funds is fantastic, because first of all, in terms of reciprocity, not only because it gives us the opportunity to enter as minority co-producers in many projects, in wonderful projects, but also is the fact that our majority productions are being seen by many cinematographies. There's a real something in return that's being given, and that further generates industry. It's very favorable for the industry. You were asking me about animation. Yes, but tell us a bit more to open up the panel. Tell us about your experiences. I think you're preparing some animation projects. Well, so talking about reciprocity, which really is we have been talking about this for a long time, and it really seems marvelous to us. I can give you an example of a film we're going to present now. It's a feature film, an animation feature. There's a Belgian producer. We've known him for many years. And since we didn't have that reciprocity, we couldn't be able to do anything specific production with him. So thanks to this form of aid, we have been able to do something specific. We are preparing another project where we are the majority producers. The Belgian producer come in as an a minority co-producer, and thanks to this exchange, we can enter as a minority co-producer in his production where he is majority producer, which is very good because that generates a great deal in terms of industry. And the project in which we want to enter as minority co-producers, it's a production that we've already got Germany on board, Holland on board, but in all these years, what we've realized is that the countries like the Central European countries, they've done things very well in terms of reciprocity. They're way ahead of us. Well, quite ahead of us, and that's good. But really, I remember the case of presenting a co-production from a Dutch fund, I can explain, that wasn't going to support the project because they knew that there would be no opportunity beyond our goodwill, our individual goodwill, but there was no other opportunity beyond that at some point we could support it from the Spanish institutions, support this project as a minority, and that is what has changed. That happened to us. The experience we had previously with Holland, I can explain to you. It was a project that we shot in 2014. It's called Volcania. The additional idea was to we had a Dutch partner, and that is precisely what happened to us. Yeah, the Dutch work in terms of points, and since there was no reciprocity from the Spanish state, we did not get that aid from that fund, and we couldn't co-produce with Holland. We hope that this time things will go better, that there can be this kind of exchange, this meaningful exchange, and it's fantastic, really. Have you got a specific project that you've been able to co-produce and that you were trying to co-produce, and that you didn't manage to when this aid did not exist? For example, Bultania, yes, these didn't exist, and the Dutch co-producer, since there was no reciprocity, they didn't give us that aid, and we were minority co-producers. Yes, we were also minority co-producers. So I think we have upsets from all sides. I can tell you setbacks from all sides. 3 years ago, we came to this co-production forum in San Sebastian. We fell in love with the project, but it was the story of the green plant. I don't know if it's familiar with you, but the script was wonderful. The director was wonderful. Everything was marvelous, but we couldn't enter this project because this form of aid did not exist. So that it's a project. If you have followed this project, it went to Cannes, it won Bafifi, it went to Berlin, and we are fiancés. We are engaged, but we can't get formally. We can't get married. That's the problem. And we are there trying. We are making steps forward, but I think it's an example of things that can now be formally done with these opportunities. We're saying that we're insisting on this because so that producers, foreign producers, you should not hesitate in trying to contact Spanish producers, because we are finally so happy to be able to do this with you, that it's an opportunity for us, not only in terms of finance, but in terms of artistic exchange and in terms of the brand product. So that's our intention. Adria, can give us a success case also with France. Yes. It's wonderful to be able to speak without this mask. Last year, yes, we were lucky to have a project in the ETHEC, in the minority co-production, something we had been demanding for years, because we weren't even engaged. We were always sort of in minority co-producers. But there, you go to the forums, there were projects that you like, but I didn't even want to ask the girl to come out to dance with me because, I said you are nice, but because we knew it was going to be very difficult to make a financial plan. And And to get a co-producer from another country to go with you, where there's certain clear rules and dates, but now the project, it was Entre la vie et la mort, Entre la vie et la muerte con Francas, which won the Palma d'Or. They knew of a film that we had done, and they wanted to, saying we would want to exchange, do a project. And when the EFEC funds came out, it was an opportunity to enter. And more specifically, in terms of financing, we have about 200,000 euros in Spain, and I think we got from the ESEC. Spanish television in the last committee meeting entered 6. So that was very good. So television can enter in terms of fiscally. So we were able to get almost 700,000 euros. I think it's a good moment to come towards us. We are nice people. We have some money, and we have something concrete and specific we can offer. In addition to, it's also a country with good technicians, good locations, and I think also that in a certain way, one thing leads to the other. And Spanish television would not have been able to enter this project if they didn't have that first important part of the bargain, which was the public financing. And so La Torre entered in the film. I think that it was a good film. But yes, I think everything helps at the end of the day, and I think it's little by little, step by step. I think there are certain rules which are there to co-produce with someone in Catalonia. I think we have an advantage with regard to the rest, because there's a very specific fund, and it's a fund that is separate from the INICA. There's a very good opportunity to produce, because the more producers, more projects. But since it is separated in Catalonia from the rest of... Yes, I wanted to say something here, because we were saying it before with Sylvia. It is true. Is it true what you're saying? But this year it's changed, and you can go 2 selective projects or 2 general projects plus 1, or what's the, if it's minority? Is it that way, Sylvia? Then there's a third, if it's a minority co-production with Spanish, so the 2 lines were there. You could have 3 projects, and the third project as a minority co-producer. I think it's a good way to compensate for things. But I also had the idea that this year they have adapted it. Last year also, eh? But it could be national co-production. It could be a third national project in minority with a Spanish co-producer. But this year is just for international projects. Well, even better, because in Catalonia you have to get the co-production approved from the majority country, which was also far more complicated, and that could take another year. But there were countries that wouldn't approve the thing if you couldn't assure them that you could get the money in your own country, and this also is a great help for producers. We think that we demand that the co-production must be approved when you make the request. We demand that, but I suppose everything will come. A minority production that's not fully approved is probably a good idea. I think what Adria is saying is very, very, very important, because for co-producers' friends, because really we are now talking about the base. The base of this is financing, okay? But it would also be good to go further, which is talk about the tools which we use. And here we can talk about agreements but really, the opportunity to present a project which has not been approved by the majority producing country is wonderful, because what I have seen all over these years is that the greatest challenge, but it is already difficult to find a project that you like, a project in which you want to get involved, that you like the director, that you find a good co-producer, but the biggest challenge was being able to harmonize, to bring together all these different co-productions, and of course the requisites of each territory. And that's a huge, huge question. So the fact that you now have this possibility in this aid system, it is wonderful. It is wonderful. As you can see, they are steps by steps that we are building step by step. That we are building between the sector and the institutions, because we are learning together. We deal with cases together. Michael, you had more things to say that you wanted to share with us?
Well, yes, maybe let's talk about the requirements for this specific line. In terms of features, cinema features, the minimum budget is 800,000 euros, 200,000 for documentaries, 1 million if we are talking about animation features. Sorry to interrupt. Are you talking about the Spanish side? Yes, that's right. What else? I was just looking at figures. Last year, in animation, we only got one project, so we couldn't analyze things in more depth, even if the project had 2,400,000 euros. That was the budget. We received different projects, different documentary cinema projects. The budgets were quite high, and therefore they fulfilled this minimum entry requirement. And then in terms of features, the same thing goes. The average minimum budget was 1 million euros. So what I mean is that it is not difficult to be able to reach this line. To get it is quite easy, and I agree with them. It opens up the possibility to be able to participate at international projects where in the past it was more difficult. Now we can come out and dance and feel more safer and feel safe. As you are saying, it is not difficult to fulfill those requirements if you want to make a request. What about respecting at the delivery? What do I mean? The aid intensity that exists for Spanish movies. I mean, the same rules apply for minority. Yes, the intensity is the same, either you are a majority or a minority, depends upon the Spanish budget for the film, for the movie, on the Spanish side. So intensity is going to be applied there only. Therefore, concepts such as 80% for a new director or a woman director, no, it doesn't matter. Everything is the same. Sorry, Valerie. Before I was talking about the minimum budget on the Spanish side. No, I was talking about the total, the global budget. Yes, Adrian was making signs at me and I didn't know what he meant. No, I didn't want to. I know it's important. If we're going to be co-producing together, we need time because there are not so many calls per year and there are certain elements to fulfill. One of the authors has to be Spanish, either the DOP, scriptwriter, or musician. So if the project is very advanced, it is difficult. So it is very good to co-produce with us, but you cannot arrive at the last minute. It is always better to come, with time enough. And then, at least in the ICA, you need to have, the pre-approved co-production. So that also implies a whole process 15 days before the end of the call, right? Don't you think so? Am I wrong? Yes, that's right. This year, for example, 8 days before the end of the call, before you could come up to the last day. But the problem is that on the last day, we were getting all the requests and everything had to be approved just in a little while, because if not, they wouldn't be able to ask for the aid. So in these last 2 years, we have been saying maybe 5 days before, 8 days before, and maybe next year we will say that just, as soon as the call is published. Well, 8 days, that's enough. We have time enough to look at things, but it is true that you need to ask for documents, so it is a bit you need more time to do that, and we ourselves approve it. We do not ask the other part to have it approved. It has to be approved either by ourselves or by ISEC, not by the foreign side, not by the foreign part. Ángeles, please. Any comments, something you would like to share with us? Real image? Well, what we have started with animation some 3 years ago. And animation is a world by itself, with production processes which are very long and complex. And animation, well, I don't know. I think it is impossible if you are not co-producing on an international basis. And it is true that that requires flexibility because you are adding partners all the time. It is very difficult before shooting to have everything finished. Yes, at our level, and I think that is a European regulation, international co-production has to be pre-approved before day one when you start shooting. And with animation, that can be flexible. Documentary, sometimes the line is not clearly defined. In animation, we find what Adrian was saying. Yes, the creative team, it is not the same thing. DOP, if we are talking about real-life feature or animation, it cannot be compared. It is not the same. And then here we could start talking about agreements, and that's not the point. Well, maybe next year. I see that you are very motivated. Yes, it's true. As Adrian was saying, we have technicians in Catalonia, in Spain, fantastic technicians. We have this aid, and I am a Catalan, so the fact of having ISEC and ICA is something great, is fantastic. And that is why the most important thing to remember is that we are marvelous partners. That is the bottom line. And I think that we have many connections. We have Eurimage with 8 projects, yes, last committee, Ibermedia. We have also many different languages, and we are used to improvising. And we are flexible people, and that is great in terms of co-productions. Yes, we are nice people. And if you want to co-produce, you have to be used to, you need to know that things are going to happen, things will go wrong, and in our country, that is always the case. So we are used to all that, to that situation. Come to us, here we are waiting for you. And I don't know, have you got any questions in the room? I don't know, from the administration point of view, practical questions, we will be answering with full honesty. Please tell me. Microphone.
Okay. ¿Qué tal? Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. A question for Silvia. You were talking about minority co-productions. In the year 2020, we had 6 projects and 700,000 euros, but I didn't hear any amount when we were talking about this year. 8 projects, yes, and for this year, 800,000 euros, roughly. A bit, something like that. A bit less compared to the endowment, because last year it was 6.4, and this year 5.3. We had fewer projects. Yes, there were very few projects. There were in co-production, but minority projects, there were fewer. There is more money, but we could have had more projects. 5 is the minimum. If we have well-assessed projects, we would be very happy to give more. Thank you. Anybody else? Microphone. Institutions should train us a bit more. There are so many papers to fill in. we as a producer, we have to fill in so many papers, and sometimes we don't know how to do it. We need training. I don't know. Are there training courses? Both in Catalonia or the ICA, do you organize any courses, training courses? Let me try and reply. This year there was a meeting organized by ICA through one of the associations, but it was open for producers in general. And the idea was precisely to explain certain details about the requests. But usually this is something that the different associations deal with. It is not up to us from the institutions to deal with all that. Well, on our website, there are frequently asked questions where after several years here, we have tried to take that into account and to put those questions, and we give answers. But we have a direct channel. We have a telephone number, a telephone channel. We have an email service. And this year, in the selective department, we have replied to more than 1,000 emails to trying to solve doubts. And we are very few people, that is true, dealing with the aid. So it is not up to the ICA or up to ISEC to explain how to fill in all those documents and how to handle all that information. I think that the call and frequently asked questions clarify things. And if not there, we are. Come to us and ask. But training courses about how to fill in all those documents, yes, it is true that is important. In case of this selective department, there is a commission, there is a score which is objective, and then the other 50% of this score to get an aid comes from a commission. There are 14 members reading and studying the projects in that committee, and I always say the same thing. The content of the documents has to be good, a good project, but also at the same time you need to handle that correctly. Documents have to be attractive and the documents have to be properly filled in. But just as when we were in university or in high school, contents have to be good, but at the same time then you need to be able to introduce that well because it will be coming through our eyes. So that is important too. Bear it in mind when dealing with these documents. We cannot train you and tell you how to do a pitching. That is part of your own work. It is up to you. You are the professionals in this sector. And then it is true that there are different associations which are organizing courses or, yes, they are helping. They will be assisting you as producers. I would like to add something. I don't know if it is a course or a training, but whenever we launch new lines or whenever we modify something, we always organize a meeting, an online meeting. An online meeting, yes, that was the case in recent years with the audiovisuals director, with technical people to explain how it works, this line. How to do the formal presentation, because as Silvia was doing, maybe that is something you must already know yourselves, but how to interpret or how to introduce the project so as to benefit from that line. And as Silvia was saying, you can call us, you can drop us an email, I don't know if 1,000 or how many, but there we are. And our people in the audiovisual department, there they are all the time. They are available for you. And I also forgot that in each of the different lines we have, there are documents on the web. There is some sort of handbook, a handbook where you can learn about the line, etc., etc. All the details as a roadmap. There is also a fax number, I think, with frequently asked questions, with FAQs, in both cases. Okay, I agree with all of you. Yes, it is not up to us, up to the administration to do that, even if, of course, We are available through the telephone, through the email, all that exists. I have been a user, I have benefited from that, and associations are working very well too, organizing professional events and seminars. But I would like to tell you who asked the question that there are also professionals, consultants, experts who know a lot about these lines, used to dealing with all these documents. And maybe that won't be for free, but they can also help you. They can help you in terms of all those documents, how to fill them in, so that you can be successful. I've been working for 3 years in the ICA Commission with selective aid in that department. And it is true, I remember perfectly well that we were getting many, many different projects, features, and documentaries in a record time, and then we had to read them very quickly and assess them very quickly. And I have to tell you that we had to be working very quickly. That is true. And it is very important that the documents have to be orderly, attractive. That is very helpful. That is something in favor. There were certain projects where you knew that, because of the producer or the people, if they are professional people, they were going to be handing us a highly professional document. Both things go together. But sometimes, if we are talking about new talents, you had to be paying attention, be very careful, because there were highly interesting things, but they were not even respecting, they started here, then they followed there. There was no order, and that goes against the project. And maybe because the volume is huge, you keep on reading, but, maybe it won't remain with you, and you will end up favoring another project, for example. Well, that was just trying to give you a reply.
Okay, it's true also that when they are minority co-productions, the fact is that our position is we sorry not to have been the people who have been behind the projects, and we fall back on a lot of the work done by the majority co-producers. So it's very interesting for a producer to be able to combine both formulas, because you can at the same time pushing projects projects where you are a majority producer, and also have to go back to something where you have to play an extra effort to be able to combine both things. And at the same time, in the elaboration of material, you get material that has already been created and generated from somewhere else, which doesn't mean that we should limit ourselves to. We have to also adapt, and it's like a poster, and I suppose you work on the material, adapting them to where they're supposed to be presented. Yes, in our case, we like to work to give about the script, how we're going to shoot, we propose the shooting team, how to feel part of the project from even if you enter late, perhaps you arrive in this project 5 years later. But it's another way of working, very interesting, artistically, in terms of collaboration, financially, and I very much like being able to have another hat, somebody else who enters that can offer other things. But I think you have to adapt yourself to the project and improve the project. But there are specific things, for instance, Entre la vida y la muerte, which was proved in Brussels. In Brussels, we shot in Barcelona. We put sort of announce ads from Brussels, and those are things which are very important to have the kind of team you need to do things like that, because you open yourself to other markets to see if a project it worked between France, Belgium, and Spain, and you know that in those three countries it has worked. It can work in other European countries, so you assure yourself the French sale. I really believe in co-production. It's a way of bettering the project and making sure the project is seen in other countries. So I encourage people to do it. Angelis, when you are preparing material, when you prepare material, do you do a Spanish version as a specific part of the dossier? Yes, that's what I was going to say. I understand co-production as contribution. Meaning, if I wanted to work in finance, I would have been a banker. So we enter in the projects because we want to bring something creatively to the table. So we have opinions on the script. We really share the project. And then also the DOP, it would be Spanish. The musician is going to be Belgian, for example. The music composer is going to be Belgian for the Belgian project. But really, everything is done from the point of view of sharing. I would like to say something. Yesterday I was talking with a friend, a producer, and he was saying something which I hadn't thought of before, and I want to share this with you. He said that he was not prepared to be a minority co-producer because his ego was not prepared for that. And he said, "What? I hadn't thought about that." So I started thinking about, and I said, "It might sound silly, but it isn't. But you have to be prepared because you are accustomed to being the leader." And there, in a certain way, you share, but you are not the leader. But it also seems marvelous to me because what I was saying before, you not only generate industry, you have the possibility to go to other markets. You have to really to bring together forces from different territories to go to important festivals. It's being able to share. I think. Perhaps my ego is not very high, but I can't say that. I can't say what he said. Mm-hmm. But that's an exercise of honesty, very interesting exercise. And I think you have to be. There are minority co-producers who are wonderful, and there are majority co-producers who are not so good. But we've seen a lot of that. But it is true that it does generate, it obliges you to be generous, and you are the final guest, the final person who's been invited, but you are there because you want to be there. And so you are there to offer your bit as well. And en passant, you enter with different talent, and also it is bringing further richness to the project. Otherwise, I would have gone into banking. And that's not what I want to be. If I wanted, I would have been a banker. Okay, any other questions? So I think with this question, on this note, we can hear. Any question anymore? You want anything else you want to add from up here? Yes, we invite you all to do international co-productions. It is the best way to learn, to sell the product, to get financing, and in different countries, especially, most of all, to learn from other countries. And that means, that's what I want to say, and move the films around international markets. So we do encourage you to ask for aid, minority, majority, co-production, and even the general. Go ahead, do it, please. And we encourage you. And it's wonderful to be here, listening and not having to sell. It's wonderful. That's also very nice. Okay, I would like to thank you very much, the four of you, for your generosity, for being here, and to you as well, hoping that this has helped you and has encouraged you. Thank you.